everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today we're talking about my summer TBR. So these are the books that I want to read in June, July, and August. And this time I have a little bit of a longer list than I usually do. I usually try to keep it to 6 books because I cannot commit to what I'm going to read in the next few months because I'm very much a mood reader. But this time I'm taking the approach more of we're just going to say a bunch of stuff, throw it out there, see what sticks, and see what I actually read. So it's not a guarantee that I'll read any of these books, but these are the things that are like right now at the top of my mind and my priority of what to read in the summer. But before we dive into that, we're going to, as always, do a little review of my spring TBR and what I did or didn't read from that. So on my spring TBR, I had The Prior of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, The Wicker King by Kay Ankrum, The Rune Lords by David Farland, The Palace of Illusions by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, People of the Book by Geraldine Brooks, and Sherwood by Megan Spooner. This was the poll pick from winter, which I did not read, so it got rolled over into spring. Then the poll pick for spring that you all voted on was The Word for World is Forest. And then I had 2 kind of extra series that I wanted to reread. The first was the Truth series by Dawn Cook, and the other was the Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo in anticipation of the TV show. So quickly, I'll just go through and tell you what I did or didn't read in the order that I read them and with the ratings. I'll link below any either reviews or wrap-ups where I talked about these if you want to know more information for the books that I did actually complete. So for the books that I read, the first one was I reread the entire Truth series by Dawn Cook. I gave the first book 4 stars, the second book I think 3.5 stars, and then the third and fourth books both 4 stars, I believe. I have a whole series review for this though, which I'll link below. Then I read Sherwood by Megan Spooner, which I gave 4 stars. I have a review for this as well. Then I read The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, which I gave 3 stars. Then I read The Wicker King by Kay Ankrum, which I gave 4 stars, I believe. And finally, The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin, which I gave 3.5 stars. So that means that there were 2 books that I DNF'd and 2 books that I did not get to at all. So the 2 that I DNF'd were The Palace of Illusions by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni and People of the Book by Geraldine Brooks. My DNF video should already be up, so I'll link that if you want to see more about why I DNF'd those. And then there were 2 rereads that I didn't get to at all, which were The Rune Lords by David Farland and The Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This one I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't reread it, but I still want to reread it at some point this year. This one I'm fine with the fact that I didn't reread it, and I actually think maybe it's for the best because I watched the show and I really enjoyed it, and I feel like if I had recently reread this, I may not have enjoyed the show as much because if there were, you know, changes or inconsistencies with the book, things like that may have annoyed me more. But since I haven't read these books for like 4 years, there's also just a lot of stuff that I had forgotten, which made the watching of the TV show, that whole experience, made it a lot more fun, just because I was surprised by things that I had completely forgotten about from the books. So I think this one actually probably was a good thing that I didn't reread it. So those are the books from my spring TBR. Now let's dive into my summer TBR. So first up, I have 2 buddy reads that I have planned for the summer, and that means that both of these will actually happen. These are the only books on this TBR that are guaranteed. No, not the only ones. I'm guaranteed to read these 2 buddy reads and the poll pick that you guys vote for. Other than that, it's all a guessing game as to whether I'll read any of these. But first up is Path of Fate by Diana Farrow Francis. I'm going to be buddy reading this with Chris from Chris Bookish Cauldron. And I actually don't know too much about this. This is one that I found at a used bookstore and got kind of on a whim because it was $1 and it looked like it might be kind of naturey, and I know that she has a hawk animal companion. I think she has like a patron goddess that she worships, and she may have some kind of healing powers from her connection to this goddess. I'm not totally sure. but it sounded like a lot of things that makes me intrigued by a fantasy series. So I've been meaning to get to this one for a while, so doing a buddy read is a great way to get me to actually read it, because this one has actually been on my shelf for a couple of years now, so I'm excited to get to it. The other one that I'm going to be buddy reading is Miranda and Caliban by Jacqueline Carey, which I'll be reading with Kara from Wild Book Garden. So this is a standalone adult fantasy retelling of The Tempest by Shakespeare, which I don't remember the story of The Tempest that well, so I might have to like refamiliarize myself with the story. I'm very interested to read something else from Jacqueline Carey because I read the first book in her Phaedra trilogy, Kushiel's Dart, and then I read half of Kushiel's Chosen and DNF'd it, which I didn't like a lot of the kind of plot and character choices that she was making, but I did really enjoy her writing, and so I want to try a lot of her other books because I like her writing a lot, so I'm curious to see what her stories and characters are like in other worlds and outside of the Kushiel world that she has created. So I'm going to be trying out this book from her. So those are the two buddy reads that I have. Then I have a few books that are continuations of series. So the first one is Dragon Keeper by Robin Hobb. So this is kind of, I guess, the beginning of a series, but also a continuation, because this is the first book in the Rainwild Chronicles, where we're back in the Rainwilds, back with the dragons and the sea serpents and all of that. But I kind of think of it just as a continuation of a series because it's in the larger like realm of the Elderlings. This is, I think, the 10th book in the realm of the Elderlings or something like that. So yeah, so this is continuing the realm of the Elderlings, but starting the Rainwild Chronicles. Yeah, I can't say much else about it other than that we're in the Rainwilds with the dragons and the sea serpents. I read like the first chapter of this already, and it reminded me that the sea serpents kind of creep me out a little bit, and I don't really like them. But I'm curious to see how this series goes for a few reasons. One being that this is the only one that has 4 books in it. But also each of the books are shorter. These are more in the like 500 page range instead of the like 800 page range like a lot of her other series. So that seems like a more reasonable book length. Oh, there go the dogs. Okay. And also because this series, it seems like even among people who love Robin Hobb, it seems like this is everyone's least favorite series from her in this world. So I'm very curious as to what I'm going to think about it, because I feel like I tend to have kind of contrary opinions about Robin Hobb's books. So I'm just wondering if I will agree with everyone that this is not the best in the world of the realm of the Elderlings, or maybe this will be my favorite series. Who knows? Just because I'm contrary like that. We'll find out. Another one that's a continuation of a series is Realm of Ash by Tasha Suri. So this is the second book in the Books of Amba. The first one was Empire of Sand, which I read last year and I really enjoyed, but it is a companion series. So this one is following a different character. This is about the sister of the main character from the first book, and I think she is in a very different life situation from the first character. I think from what I've heard about this, I think that this dives a little bit more into the dream magic that was in the first book, which is really interesting to me because I thought the magic in the first book was really cool. But yeah, this is another one that I'm kind of curious what I will think about this, because I know for a lot of people who like adore the first book, they didn't like the second book as much. But I'm wondering if I will be contrary and like the second book better. I have a feeling that I'm gonna really like this one, and I did really enjoy the first book, but it wasn't like a favorite, so I feel like I might not have the same kind of attachment to some of the other people I've seen review this series, and I just feel like I might like the second book better. We're gonna find out, who knows. Then I also have Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the second book in the Devabad trilogy. Yes, the first one was City of Brass, which I think I also read last year. I listened to the audiobook, so I actually might listen to the audiobook for the second book as well, even though I have the physical copy because this one was given to me. But yeah, this is a series that I'm not sure how I feel about it at the moment. I guess this second book I'm going to decide if I'm finishing the trilogy or if this series isn't quite for me. I enjoyed the first one, but I wasn't like in love with it. So we're gonna have to see how this one goes. And then the final series continuation that I have on this list is Hunter's Death by Michelle West. So this is a bind up of the 2 books in the duology, Hunter's Oath and Hunter's Death. So I read the first one last month. I'm going to be hopefully reading the second one this month. It's a little bit longer. The first one was only like 300 pages, and I think this one is more like 500 pages, or 550 pages. But I think I can do it. The first book I was kind of lukewarm about. It has some elements that I enjoy because they worship like this hunter god, and they're always like out in the forest. There's some interesting kind of like time travel elements to it. There's this strong like brotherly bond that there's between these 2 friends. There are a lot of elements that I like, but I just wasn't as into the execution of it. But this is the first duology in a larger world that this author has written multiple series within, and I really want to read the other series set in this world. And I have heard that this is by far her weakest series. I don't think this was her debut, but it was one of her earliest series, and people say that she has really grown as an author and a storyteller in future series. So I'm kind of just trying to get through this one so that I can move on to the other series that I have heard are much better and I'm very interested in. So yeah, this is the other continuation of a series that I have. Then I have 2 books that are not continuations of series. One of them is a standalone and one is the beginning of a series. So the standalone is Into the Heartless Wood by Joanna Ruth Meyer. This is I think this came out this year, didn't it? Was it a 2021 release? I think so. But this is about tree sirens. So there are these like sirens who are kind of tree spirits that lure people to their deaths in the forest, but then one of them falls in love, and that of course causes problems. But this promises to have good like foresty magic and atmosphere, so I've really been meaning to get to this one. And then the other one is the beginning of a series, which is Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko. This was on my list of top 10 books to read this year, so I definitely want to get to it for that reason, but also, I mean, it's on my top 10 list because I've heard amazing things about it, and the second book is coming out in August, I think. So I really want to read this hopefully in June, but definitely before the second book comes out, so I can be excited about the release if I love this. This is about a girl who I think has been trained her entire life to kill a prince, and the way she does that is by infiltrating his inner circle through a series of trials. But when she does that, she actually finds herself becoming very close to the prince and these other like members of the inner circle, and so then she struggles with having to decide whether she protects her friends or betrays this mission that she has been raised with and trained for her entire life. So I think that sounds interesting, and as I said, I've heard great things about this. Then I'm going to put another reread on this list. Of course, I still want to reread The Rune Lords by David Farland, so maybe I'll get to it this season, who knows. But the one I'm actually putting on this list is The Witches of Alianan by Kate Forsyth. This is the beginning of a series that I think is maybe 7 books long, but it is set in this world in which witches have been hunted, and our main character I think is a witch. She has magical powers, but she has been raised in seclusion in this like hidden valley her entire life, so she really doesn't know anything about the rest of the world and doesn't even know that witches are hunted. But then of course events at the beginning of the book force her out of this life of seclusion and force her into the world and into an adventure. And I read this a very long time ago. I don't remember a lot else about it, but I really do want to try rereading it, especially because I always see this on lists for books with like nature magic, and I remember none of that. But the fact that I read and enjoyed this series years ago might partially be because of that. So like maybe that's why I used to love it. I have almost no memory of it. So this is also on the list. All right, so now we're on to the part where we have a poll that you all can vote in as to adding one book to my TBR. So this is one of the books that will be guaranteed that I will read at some point in the summer. So this time we're going for kind of a YA contemporary fantasy theme. So first up, we have The Weight of Feathers by Anna Marie McLemore. Anna Marie McLemore is an author that I've read a couple of books from, and most of them I've enjoyed. There was one that I was not as into, but I really want to read more of their work. And this one, I believe, is kind of a Romeo and Juliet type love story. Of course, told with Anna Marie McLemore's signature magical realism type storytelling and beautiful writing. Then we have Blood Magic by Tessa Gratton. So Tessa Gratton is one of my favorite authors, so I'm trying to work my way through all of her books, and this is one of her earliest series. This may actually be her debut series, but this is a YA contemporary fantasy that is about two characters who both find they have kind of a family history connection to blood magic, and one of them finds what they call the blood journal, which is this journal from their parents who've died that has blood magic spells in it. And then she finds out that her parents may not have died from natural causes, and I think she gets swept up in trying to figure out what actually happened to them. And then the final book is Places No One Knows by Brenna Jovanoff. This is about a girl who can walk through dreams, and so she meets a boy who, they go to school together but they don't really know each other in school, but she visits him at night in his dreams, and the two of them get to know each other and I think fall in love, but both of them are kind of questioning whether this is even real. And I've seen a couple of people reading this on BookTube recently with some mixed results, but some positive reviews that has made me really interested in it. And Brenna Jovanoff is an author that I have really been wanting to try for a while, so I do want to get to this one. So the three books that you can vote on are The Weight of Feathers by Anna Marie McLemore, Blood Magic by Tessa Gratton, and Places No One Knows by Brenna Jovanoff. And also I'll have a link to my community tab where there will be a poll for this, or you can just navigate through my channel to the community tab and vote there on the poll. So I'm very interested to see what you all will vote for and what I'm going to be reading this summer. So those are all the books that are on my TBR for this summer. If you've read any of these, I'd love to hear about it, what your thoughts are. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye!